Hi, good morning to all our friends and supporters. It's Mayor Weinstein with Israel Now, and I'm joined with Ron East from J.ca. He publishes a Jewish news newspaper. It's online and it has everything up to date, and it's important that people pay attention to it as we're getting the information out there. Let me just make sure that everything is set up here. So yes, everything's working good. All right. So Ron, there's been such an increase in anti-Semitism attacks against the Jewish community. It's gotten to the point that there have been leaders in Iran that have issued fatwas against the Jews worldwide to kill them. And we called them Hamas supporters before because they're very clear about that, targeting the Jewish community, uh, holding rallies. They, in fact, just hours after the October 7th, 2023 massacre of Jews by Hamas and people of Gaza that joined in this, they were celebrating. They were celebrating in Toronto at Nathan Phillips Square. They were celebrating globally. And these same people are going to be gathered throughout the world this Saturday, this Shabbat, in particular in Toronto in front of the US consulate, and they're expressing their full support for Khamenei. So they have tried to package themselves as human rights advocates and all that, and now they're coming out forcefully for Khomeini together with all the fatwas. Ron, how do you see this?
It's Hey Mayor, first of all, and good morning to you, and good morning to everybody.
Morning.
Before we get started, I think we're in day 8 today of the war with Iran. My thoughts and prayers go out to the soldiers, of the IDF and the American Army, who are doing an amazing job at destroying the infrastructure of the most vile of regimes to have come on this earth since I think the Nazis.
Mm-hmm.
So, I wish them all the best. Anybody, that's in the region, that is a ally and a friend of ours, stay safe. Now to get back to your question, it's just an extension of what we saw immediately following October 7th. The same people who were, rallying in support of Hamas have just now simply jumped over now rallying in support of the IRGC and of the Islamic regime. It just shows you that these people are not human rights protesters, not human rights champions at all. What they are Jew haters. We're simply changing, the type of Jew hate, depending on the way that the wind blows at any given moment. Gaza was their number one thing, all eyes on Gaza, genocide, the whole 9 yards. Now they've forgotten completely about Gaza, and now it's all about, saving the Iranian regime. And it's funny, these people who claim to be human rights advocates are, protesting in support of regimes that are the most brutal regimes when it comes to human rights, whether it's, gay rights, whether it's women's rights, whether it's minority rights, whether it's political rights, whatever the case might be. And these regimes are the most awful of regimes. I'm assuming the same people will march in the streets in support of North Korea, if they needed to. I mean, they're considering what happened in Venezuela to be a kidnapping. It's ridiculous, and you can't make any sense of it, especially when you see that 13 countries are being attacked by Iran, and yet you
Mm-hmm.
don't see them protesting on the streets, in support of Qatar or the UAE or Bahrain or Azerbaijan or Turkey or any of the other countries, Cyprus. So it just shows you that this is just simply about the Jew hatred and nothing more. Anytime that there's a threat on the, leaders of the Jew hate movement, these people come out in full force. On the left, the woke left, which is just obscene. But don't forget also that Canada is home to 700 plus IRGC members of a variety of different levels. So there's no surprise here that you see this kind of hatred towards democracy, towards Canada, the United States, and Israel in particular, and our community, of course.
Let's take that apart for a little bit. Over 700 recognized RGC members here in Canada, but yet we have the entire movement that was the anti-Israel movement expressing their full support for the IRGC. We have synagogues already being shot up.
Yeah,
Just a couple of days ago in Toronto, two synagogues were targeted by gunshots. Uh, Other businesses as well, same thing. So, we expect to see. We don't want to see it, but most likely there's going to be assassinations in the community.
it's the
It has
natural
reached that point.
it's the
Sure.
natural next level of what's going on. And what's most alarming is that now we are 3 years into this Jew hate fest across our country, and it seems that our politicians and our police forces are impotent when it comes to trying to protect the Jewish community. How can a synagogue be shot so many times and no arrests can be made and nobody can be found and be charged? I mean, one time you shoot somewhere, okay, two times is a problem, three times it's already become a pattern. I believe this one synagogue was shot at 11 times. When that
Yes.
happens, something is wrong with the way that our system is working. Something is broken in the way that we protect the Jewish communities across this country. I mean, look at Montreal also. I mean, look at the businesses there that were tagged with swastikas. And look at the a story that I just read the other day in the National Post about a 15-year-old kid, and I believe it's Nova Scotia, a Jewish kid who can't even go to school, has to be homeschooled because of the level of anti-Semitism that he's facing at school and the inability of the education system to give him any kind of protection or any kind of relief from the anti-Semitism. And this is not just in Nova Scotia; it goes across the board, all across Canada. It seems that we're just incapable as a society to stand up for the Jewish community. If this was happening to the LGBT community, to the indigenous community, or to any other minority, people would be out in the streets outraged, politicians would be speaking up, city halls would be passing amendments. It would be very different. But when it comes to matters of Jewish people and anti-Semitism, there is a fear there that if you take action to curtail it, somehow you're going to offend somebody. And I'm not sure who we're afraid of we're going to offend, the extremists on the Islamic side, the white nationalists, the neo-Nazis. Who exactly are we so afraid to
Right.
offend that we're willing to, allow one of our minority communities in the country to be consistently harassed on a nearly daily basis with no relief whatsoever? There's zero relief for our community. It's
There
happening on a daily
are
basis.
mosques, um, not just in Toronto, throughout Canada, that are holding services to support Khomeini.
Absolutely.
Uh, that's going on. And when you look, and I have looked into a number of these different Islamic organizations, they have fabulous relationships with the police. Police have come into their facilities to honor Ramadan and just to express their full support for the leadership of these Islamic centers that are holding these services to support Khomeini. Khomeini equals Hitler. His goal is the eradication of the Jewish people, the eradication of the Jewish state. He would get up every morning, and that would be his coffee for the day. That Israel must be destroyed, and to arm proxies surrounding Israel, such as Hamas and Hezbollah. That's the goal. So
And yet,
to
and
have
yet
these
somehow,
institutions, to
and
have
yet
these,
somehow Israel is
yes,
vilified, in all of this. Somehow Israel is the bad actor in all of
yeah,
this. Everybody forgets who Khomeini is and what Khomeini does. That's just like you said, his coffee in the morning is, how do I destroy Israel? And his joy in the afternoon is watching, them hang, political adversaries and homosexuals. That's the kind of society that he
yeah,
was, watching over. Go and kill 40,000 of your own people, and then go and have dinner that night with your families if nothing has happened. And yet somehow Israel defending itself is somehow the pariah here. Somehow Israel is the aggressor. Somehow Israel is
yeah,
wrong. But it just shows you the level of anti-Semitism that is now pervasive, in the open. We don't even have to worry about what you say anymore because it's acceptable. Look at Tucker Carlson. Look at other right wing pundits who are just out there,
Hmm.
Candace Owens and others, who are spewing Jew hate, and they're getting millions upon millions of views. People are not doing any kind of research, not doing the basics of anything, taking their word as the fact of what it is. Look at Tucker Carlson attacking Chabad. I mean,
Yep.
how long before a Chabad house now goes up in flames or being shot at, or what even worse, because of what Tucker Carlson has been saying. I just watched a video before we came online from Toronto of our
Hmm.
friend Firaz Al Najim leading a pro Iranian protest after the death of Khamenei, with having children, stomping over the Israeli and the American flags right in the middle of Toronto. So
Right.
when that's happening, when parents are cheering on their children to already display this kind of hatred towards democracy, towards Israel, towards the United States, towards the Jewish people, I'm not sure why we're surprised as a community when things
And
escalate
the Toronto
to
police allowing it, not stepping
absolutely.
in. Right.
Absolutely. And then what you see is exactly what's happening in our streets. It's also, Mayor, I have to tell you, it's an example of the shift of demographics and of the power structure within Canadian society as a whole. And this is what happens when open borders take place and we're all a global village. And let's bring everybody in and we'll all hold hands and sing Kumbaya. And what ends up happening is you come very quick to realize that's not how the world works. And what ends up happening now is that we've allowed in a lot of actors into this country, whether they're IRGC, whether they're Hamas supporters, whether they're people coming from the Middle East who hate, have been indoctrinated for years on Jew hatred. They come into our country and then they spew that hatred here in this country and they bring others along with them on this joyride of Jew hate. And what we're seeing now is a
Right.
phenomena that we haven't seen since World War II. Very scary.
Right. Absolutely.
Very, very concerning for me.
Absolutely.
Here in Winnipeg, I'll tell you, we're having right now. There's a very outspoken pro-Palestinian agitator who is at the University of Manitoba, who's running for a VP of Student Life, which is a very important role within the student union. And there were complaints made about him with concrete evidence of his Jew hatred, the way that he speaks to community members of the Jewish community, calling females, sharmuta, which is the Arabic words for whores. I mean, just
Right.
terrible things this man has done. He was disqualified from running. Then he appealed it, and then the appeal board voted 5-0 to allow him to go back on the ballot, saying that everything he's done, while it's repugnant, wasn't done on university's grounds. Therefore, it's okay. So you can hate Jews off of university grounds. You can spew as much hate as you want. If you didn't do it on university grounds, you're a good person. I mean,
It's
this is the level
unbelievable.
of Jew hate that we've getting to now. This would not be tolerated if he was doing the same thing to the indigenous community, like I said, or to the LGBTQ community. If he was feeling that kind of hate outside of university grounds, they would never allow him to run. Yet when it comes to Jew hate, it's somehow acceptable. Ridiculous.
And let me add to that, with all this Jew hatred going on and threats against the Jewish community and actual attacks going on, where is the Jewish leadership? Where is CIJA? What's going on with these guys? They sit in their offices, they receive unbelievable paychecks, high, and there's no leadership.
Listen, the impotency goes all the way from our leadership of our community, all through the political, sphere to our law enforcement. I
Hmm.
I have given up on trying to believe that the solution to this will come from our current structure of leadership in our community, whether it's CIJA or Federation or now this Jewish network, security network. These are not going to be the answer to giving our community the sense of protection that we need. And the bureaucracy, the way that our community is set up, is not set up for this type of crisis. Our
Hmm.
leadership is not set up for this type of crisis. Our community has not been engaged in a way that they would understand the importance of gearing up or ramping up the advocacy that we're doing. We need to get out of the offices onto the streets And we need to mobilize as a community. We need to look at what are the best practices of our adversaries and adopt those practices for ourselves. We need to be much more outspoken, and we shouldn't be ashamed or afraid to use tactics that might be uncomfortable in some other cases. But you have to do what you need to do when it comes to your survival. And I believe this is an existential threat to the Jewish community in Canada. It's a matter of time before we're going to be outnumbered 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 to 1 when it comes to our adversaries. And if we don't do right now the hard work that we need to do to protect ourselves in the future, when that day comes, we'll be incapable of doing anything about it. And that's
No,
my
100%.
biggest worry, that there's too few of us like yourself, like myself, and a few others who are very outspoken, who are trying to shift the paradigm. And but there's too many people who are comfortable in this belief that if you just sein still, stay quiet, everything will be okay. And how quickly we forget what happens when you do nothing.
No, 100%. We need all that, what you said, advocating, standing up, not backing down. Jews also need to learn how to fight, self-defense, and
Absolutely.
learn how to shoot. It's legal to own firearms in Canada. Take the necessary training because these supporters of Khomeini, they want to murder the Jews, and
You
they're
know,
already shooting up the synagogues. So
I'm a big believer. I'm a big believer in the Hebrew saying, "Ena nili mili." If I'm not out there for myself, who'll be out there for me? And we're very quickly finding out that to be true. That if we are going to stand up for ourselves and wait for somebody else, nobody else is going to stand up for us. And it's time as a community to say enough is enough. And we've said this every time. Every time we say a red line has been
yeah,
crossed, and every time that red line moves more, and then we say now the red line has been crossed, and then it moves a little bit more because our community is very complacent. When it comes to the red lines, we know we have this shock and horror for 24 hours, and then we forget about it and we move on until the next crisis happens. And my fear is that we're going to move that red line until one day you and me are going to come online because there was some terrible event that happened that took the lives of community members. And at
hmm
that point, we can, all reflect on how many red lines there were that, we allowed to, forego and move the, along because of the way that our community acts and reacts. And that's a real shame. I have to tell you, I'm very disappointed in the way that our leadership has acted in the last 3 years to try and protect our communities because it's not getting any better. And the
hmm
measure of everything is, are we improving? What's the KPI here? What have you done to make me feel safer nowadays in Canada? And I have to
right,
tell you, I don't feel safer today than I did yesterday. Every day I
right.
feel less and less safe in this country, and it's largely due to also to the way that our leadership of our community makes me feel. They don't make me feel like somebody I'm gonna go to sleep at night and feel that they're
Right.
taking the best care of my well being, and that's a problem for me.
Absolutely. Listen, Ron, we're just give us a final comment because we're at the end.
Sure.
Go ahead.
My final comment to this, is that it's time for a community, not just people who are tuning into your show, but for everybody in our community to rally and stand together to really take a deep introspective into how our community is functioning right now, and to really find a way to get our community to that next stage where we can come together and we can fight this evil. Because I believe if we come together and unite, we can defeat this. But for that, we have to have people who have some courage and willing to step forward and put their neck on the line. And that's what I'm hoping that you and I at least will continue to do. And hopefully other people will come along with us who start to realize that if we don't do it now, it's going to be too late in the future.
Absolutely. Ron, Shabbat Shalom and Chag Sameach from
Same to
Purim.
you. Same
Yes,
to you.
and I'm Israel Chai, and Israel is,
What
it's
a
kind of like
superpower.
pinch me. What's going on? As we read the Megillah, we're living the Megillah right now. It's unbelievable.
Absolutely. What a times that we're living in. I tell my kids that all the time. It's going to be something that they'll be telling their grandchildren about. It's
Right.
amazing. So Shabbat Shalom to everybody. Please keep safe and keep the pride of your Judaism and of Israel, and make sure that you walk with your head held high. And being Jewish is something to be proud of, not something to hide. So always be out there proud, and know that you're on the side of righteousness and the side of good.
Amen. Thank you, Ron. We'll do
Shabbat
it again.
Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Absolutely.
Bye bye.